Hey everyone, and welcome to Catalyst Missions. We just wanted to take some time here in December at the end of 2023 and really talk about everything that has happened over the course of this year. I know there have been some countries and some sites that have been added over this last year. We want to give you some more information on that and more updates on that, and really just spend some time asking Doug some questions about Catalyst Missions and everything that has been going on. And then as we look forward into 2024, just get an idea of what could be coming down the road to provide you all with a really good update. So if you're new to Catalyst Missions for the first time, Doug, why don't you kind of set the tone for us, set the stage for us? What does Catalyst do? Who do you guys work with? And what countries and what areas around the globe are we working?
Yeah, thanks, man. We wanted to start off, for those of you who may not know what Catalyst is, we don't want to assume that you understand what the ministry does. Catalyst has existed since 2007, and I had the privilege of taking over in 2014. And when we first met with the board, we said we want to be serious about ending theological famine. And what that means for us is that we want to be a part of assisting the church in the global south, which basically are the Latin Americas, Africa, and Asia. We want to be part of assisting the global church by providing long-term, robust theological training for free to pastors and ministry leaders and disciples where the gospel exists, but access to training is scarce. And the real vision of that is we want to be a part of helping churches be healthy by having trained leadership and trained membership, because we believe if there are healthy churches, they're going to proclaim the gospel in their own context and beyond to other unreached near cultures. So the tagline, the big vision for Catalyst is we're serious about ending theological famine.
Absolutely. This year in 2023, go ahead and give us an update on some of the new countries and new sites, and maybe kind of set the stage there in terms of how did those come about?
Yeah.
That can kind of allow for you to tell folks about how do you guys establish a site?
Yeah.
How do you vet the people that you're going to be working with? And then how long does it actually take to get a new site established and going?
Yeah, good questions. So when we started Catalyst in 2015, we were working in Bolivia, which is a South American country, and then Indonesia in Asia. And since then, we're astounded, honestly, to see what the Lord has done in opening up doors to other countries. Right now, Catalyst is working in 12 countries, and we're going to talk about 2024. Hopefully, that's going to go to 13 in 2024. So right now, in Central America and the Caribbean, we're working in Nicaragua and Cuba. And then in South America, Bolivia, Argentina, Colombia, and Peru. Then in West Africa, Mali, Senegal, Ivory Coast, and Nigeria. And then in Asia, in India and Nepal. And the newest work that we have going on really is in Peru. I've been working with a group, just meeting online for probably a year and a half now. And also our Bolivian national coordinator got a request to go into Peru to start 2 other sites apart from that. So interesting work that's happening there. A couple of our other newer sites are Cuba and India, even those have been established for a while. So maybe it would be most helpful just to use an example of how we get started in a country. So let's use Cuba as an example. Our Nicaraguan national coordinator told me, he said, you need to work with this guy. His last name is Pila. I'll keep his name, not give his name entirely. But Pastor Pila is a guy in the country of Cuba. He's a wonderful brother. He seems like the type of guy we want to work with. So he made a connection. Well, then for the next about year, I met with Pastor Pila online, and basically we were just trying to vet character. Do we agree theologically? Do we agree ecclesiologically about the church, about his capacity? Is he the type of guy we want to work with? And then a year after that, we were boots on the ground. And he had established groups both in his hometown as well as on the outskirts of Havana. And his wife has started women's discipleship groups in 2 different parts of Cuba as well. So it's a long onboarding process before we actually are in the country. But we think if we do the long vetting process, the health of the coordinator determines the health of the project. And so he's our coordinator on the ground and is doing wonderful work. And the project is only as healthy as those who are running it on the ground.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to park here for too long, but tell us a little bit more about Cuba. I know we've provided some updates on Cuba in the past, but for those who maybe haven't heard that or are new, again, give us an understanding of kind of just what's the landscape like. I know there obviously, economic perspective. Cuba's, a very difficult place right now. So kind of just give us a perspective there.
Yeah, it is a tough place, and that's why hundreds of thousands likely have fled off the island. I'm going to tell a story about that because there's a really neat story that involves fleeing off the island and meeting up elsewhere. But because of the financial difficulties of living there, many people have fled off the island, and that includes many pastors. And so when we got started there, this wasn't necessarily what we were aiming for, but then as we've gone along, we've seen many of the churches have been left without shepherds. And so not only is there a need to plant new churches, we're trying to raise up a crop of pastors who can help with existing churches that don't have pastors because they left the island. So we're trying to do that. That's part of the work that we're trying to do, provide robust training for free to these guys on the ground and raise them up as shepherds and then send them into local churches or to plant new churches to try to help replace those who have left. Now, can I tell the cool story now?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the cool story. That's a cool story, but there's a lady, her name's Josefina, who was involved with Catalyst in Cuba in the women's discipleship. She was under Pastor Pila's wife, receiving training, and she fled the island. And she went to Nicaragua. We didn't know that, but I was in Nicaragua a month ago, and all of a sudden she's at our training site because she wants to keep going through the process because she found out we would be there. So she fled from Cuba to Nicaragua and then continued the process in Nicaragua, and she's like a, third or fourth generation disciple of the women's discipleship program. So just crazy how the Lord moves all this stuff around.
Yeah, for an organization that is doing so much work in so many places, but still is a small organization to have a touch point in two different countries.
Yeah, it's familial, and we got to the training site and we were just surprised to see her there, but obviously overjoyed.
Yeah, absolutely. And then tell us a little bit more, maybe a story from what's happening in Peru, because again, Peru is one of the newer ones that's happened within the last 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff happening there. We work with a guy on the ground named Pastor Ever, and he has a relative that is also a part of the training group that I'm working with, who lives in an outlying district called Yurimaguas, and it's totally indigenous, as indigenous as it can be. And so the goal is that what we're going to have, in addition to other sites being led by our Bolivian national coordinator in a different part, we're going to have a multiplication of this group I've been working with that's now going to be working with an indigenous group of pastors out in this place called Yurimaguas. So we're super excited to see that because that's indigenous growth to the country, and it's going to be done by Peruvians, and that's what we're really after.
Within that indigenous group, are there groups, communities that are truly just unreached that have never heard? Or
I'm not sure. That certainly could be a possibility. There certainly is a lack of good training opportunities for them, and that's for multiple reasons. One is geographical; they can never get there, and two is financial. And so we're trying to provide something to them that they just don't have access to.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we kind of shift a little bit and kind of look toward, kind of move across the globe a little bit, and we look a little bit toward Africa. Africa and those countries are pretty long-standing projects and have some very well-established coordinators. Give us an update on what's going on in Africa, what has happened this year, and then what looks to be happening in 2023. Obviously, there's been a lot of conflict, like in Nigeria, ongoing conflict. So give us an update there.
Yeah, so great stuff happening. Ivory Coast, Mali, and Senegal, they're all under our national coordinator in the Ivory Coast named Pastor James. And we've got a site that's going to graduate, Lord willing, in January in the Ivory Coast, as well as Senegal and Mali. So we're moving towards graduation in those countries, which is really exciting. We love to see cohort groups go all the way through and graduate, and it's a celebration. So happy to see that happen and then to send them off into the ministry. One of the most exciting things that's happening in Nigeria is that we've started a site. I'm going to withhold the name, if that's okay. We've started a site in the Muslim North. So all the sites we've had have been sort of on the border, and there's a Christianized South, and then there's a really Muslim North, and that bleeds back and forth. But we've been able to start a site in the Muslim North, and it's going fantastically well. We've had 2 modules there, and we plan to continue the work there on the ground. And our national coordinator in Nigeria said, and this was sort of the way that he described it, he said, our goal is if we can preach the gospel, a lot of those who are persecuting Christians will become converted to Christ. And so we know that's the Holy Spirit's work, but that's his outlook. That's the way that he sees this is the opportunity in the midst of persecution. So we're extremely excited about the work that's going on the ground there, both in the Muslim North as well as in the capital city of Abuja and in another outlying place.
Yeah. Seems like stories just straight out of kind of the New Testament.
Totally. Yeah, and in fact, when we work with them, it almost seems like we're the ones who are saying, these are men of whom the world is not worthy, men and women of whom the world is not worthy, and we get the opportunity to work with them. So the privilege is really ours, and we see it that way.
Again, for folks who are maybe not familiar with some of these folks who are on the ground, these coordinators who are on the ground, like James.
Yeah.
I know you've told me a few stories over the years. Maybe share a story. Like James gets on a bus, and travels for hours on end just to reach these different sites, and he is just thrilled and happy to do it.
Yeah, he is. One story in particular is. If you go to Senegal from Ivory Coast, you have to go all the way across Mali. And so he went all the way across Mali and crossed the Mali border to get to Senegal. And there was a wreck that happened, and he got his head busted open. And we start getting news of this. He got detained at the border. Then he made it across, and he got in a car, and then he got thrown from the car. And now he's got a big patch on his head, and his face is swollen. And the next message I get from him is, okay, I made it to the training site. The training starts in 5 hours. And I was, we were trying to tell him, you need to come home. What are you doing? And that's the type of guy he is. It's Apostle Paul type stuff. Again, men of whom the world is not worthy. So that's who James is. That's the kind of person he is, and that's the type of ministry work he wants to do.
As we then shift also and start to head a little bit more east over into India and Nepal, give us insight into what's happening over in South Asia and that part of the globe.
Yeah, super excited about the work that's going on. Lord willing, we're going to graduate the cohort group that we have in Nepal in the coming year. And we've got a good foundation in India as well, in Kotagiri, where we're working. And there are opportunities that are cropping up in other parts of the country. We're just trying to be careful, faithful with those opportunities to see if it's something that we want to do.
Where is that located in India? Because obviously India is such a large country.
It's huge, man. It's huge. Closer to southern India. Yeah. But there are opportunities that crop up all over the place in India. So we're just trying to be faithful with what the Lord's opened, but that's where we're working now.
No, obviously Nepal is a place that many people may know, just large mountains. But kind of give us context for the people there, the community there. What's kind of the majority religion, and just how are things going, and how are things kind of spreading there?
Yeah, it's going tremendously well. We actually work on the southern border in a place called Damak, Nepal, which is near the Indian border, and we work with a sister. Her name is Romi, and another pastor whose name is BJ, and they're just faithful workers on the ground. We've got a women's discipleship group and a pastor training group, and it's been a wonderful work to be a part of. So we're hopeful to graduate them, like I said, in the coming year, and just grateful for the opportunities the Lord's opened.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say are, in working in this many countries amongst various people groups, various cultures, languages, what are maybe just some of the roadblocks that kind of come up against Catalyst?
Yeah, some of it is just political stuff that makes it difficult to enter into the country. So that's been, obviously there was the pandemic. That was very difficult to work around. Then there's political movements that happen. If it's during an election, that could make things difficult in the country.
I remember, when we were going to Colombia before the pandemic, like we were literally about to fly out the next day, and there was riots in the streets in Bogota. You know? So I know that's one thing that can prevent.
Yeah, and you never know what's going to happen. The wonder is that these people on the ground are so zealous for the Lord, they're so zealous for the training, they're zealous for the church, that they are willing to go through the obstacles necessary to receive the training, because it's a sacrifice for them. If they're going to come receive a week-long training, it's going to be a sacrifice for them, and then to go back and implement it in their church, it just takes a great deal of courage and a great deal of sacrifice, and we're super grateful for the privilege it is to work with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we end and wrap up 2023, and as we look forward into 2024, what are some things that are on the horizon with Catalyst?
Yeah. One thing that's on the horizon is the opportunity to start a training site in Paraguay. That would be a totally new country for Catalyst in South America. One of our Bolivian regional coordinators has the opportunity to open a site there. So there's that. There's multiple graduations on the horizon in 2024, which we're super excited about. Lord willing, we'll continue to work in the 12 countries, going to 13 as we go forward. And Lord willing, we'll see more opportunities to see some of our graduates step into teaching roles. While I was in Nicaragua, I was able to visit one of the graduates of our first cohort class and talk through with him about working under our national coordinator to help multiply Catalyst in the country. So super exciting to see those opportunities crop up as well.
For folks who don't know, in terms of graduation, how long does it take to get to that point of graduation?
Yeah, it depends on the country, but almost universally it's 2 to 3 years. Yeah, to go through the entire training program, all of the modules, and then receive everything and complete all the requirements, 2 to 3 years. Yeah.
And so when we think in terms of you all supporting Catalyst Missions and what you're providing through your support, through your financial support, tell us a little bit about that. You know, if it takes, years for these folks to go through and to actually graduate, when people donate, when people give financially of their resources, what does that provide these people to go through? Like, how does that provide for them during these years?
Great question. When people give, what we give to our students, there's like a multiple list of things. One is training materials for free. All of the training materials are for free. And then when they come to the training, we take care of food and sometimes lodging as well. We ask them to just get there. And when they're there, they're going to be taken care of. So training materials, food and lodging, an on-ground coordinator who is helping to provide mentorship and discipleship to them in between residential trainings. And then we try to help them build their theological library. We want these pastors and ministry leaders and disciples to have access to wonderful resources that can help sort of feed their soul as they go forward in ministry. So again, they are paying nothing to receive all of this, and it is totally offset by donors and churches who are providing support to the ministry.
One of the things that we like to say here at Catalyst is that we're not trying to be the church, but we are equipping the church.
Yeah.
And we are helping pastors and ministry leaders be equipped so that they can faithfully and in the most healthy way take care of the flocks that they're in charge of.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. We've said many times that Catalyst is not God's plan. The church is God's plan, and Catalyst exists to serve the church. And we believe if we're doing the work that God has set in our hands well, we're going to have healthy churches popping up all over the global South where the gospel is being proclaimed faithfully.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is an update on what has happened in 2023. I don't know if there were any other stories or anything else.
Oh, there are so many other stories we could tell, but we'll leave it at that. Maybe one good thing to say is if you'd like to be involved and just to stay up to date with the stuff that's going on, go to social media, go to Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. You can find Catalyst Missions there. Stay up to date. If you want to go to our website, catalystmissions.org, and then scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, you can find where to sign up for the newsletter that we send. We don't bombard people, but try to send out quarterly updates on the work. And then also, you can get involved. You can email us at info@catalystmissions.org and say, I want to get involved. And that might look like going on a trip. That might look like going to help us train or getting your church involved. Or what does it look like for a church to adopt a project? Or maybe you just want to give to the organization. It would be a huge blessing to the work that we're doing in these countries.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's a recap on 2023. And as we look forward into 2024, a lot of exciting things happening. The reach of Catalyst is pretty mind-boggling when you think about how much is happening through a small organization like this. And it's all possible because of faithful people here at home and faithful churches who want to get involved and want to see healthy churches elsewhere throughout the entire globe. So thank you all for your involvement. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you all in another video.